Okay, we're going to look at what we're going to do with the Pirc number 2. Once again, we're going to play the Austrian, and we're going to play e6, and as always, we head toward trying to sack open the H file where possible. So let's look at this. See, we already have the engine active. These are all standard moves. And now we push e5 instead of moving bishop to d3. And the proper retreat is not enough to d7 usually in these situations, which is what the person did. And I made that move, which also puts me down half a pawn. So I like that move. Now, what's interesting is watching the computer analyze this, wanting to move bishop to e2 and just sitting on it like it's a nice positional sacrifice. However, I move h4, putting myself a full pawn down. And he goes astray. So basically, he's striking back at my center. It's logical, and now it's an even game. And now we pry open the H file, as always. Now, interestingly, computer says right move is just to take the pawn with the pawn, but that's not something that happens very easily to players. I mean, it looks like you can just hop over there, hop out with the knight, and take it with the queen, and the game's going to be over. So, computer's a good defender. Okay, now it wants me to take, knight takes d4 with an advantage. Obviously, that attacks the e6 pawn. But this player, once again, is 2100 type range, not very strong. I'm just afraid that's going to encourage him to move his knight to the right square. His knight belongs on f6 at this point, and if I attack that e-pawn, he has to defend it, and that's a natural way to do it. And so I'm going to let that pawn go. Now, as you see, that puts me down again. I had an even game, and I'm down half a pawn. However, I'm physically down a couple pawns, but I haven't attacked. So I like these things. And computer's recommending queen to b6. He moves queen to e8, which is an interesting idea. He's reinforcing the g pawn and trying to do what he can to go after that. And automatically, the computer wants me to move knight on e to g5. However, I decided now is the time to take that d pawn, because once he moves knight to f6, I'm going to move knight over to g5 and double attack it. So he's welcome to give up his bishop, which is what the computer suggests. And of course, he doesn't want to do it. Now I'm double attacking the pawn, and play. It's interesting. Once again, pawn takes pawn is the recommended move. However, white still has an advantage, especially after we get the e6 pawn back. Now he's saying knight takes h5, which certainly is going to run into a complicated mess. So this just invites a fork, and he gets the fork. And now is the moment of truth. He needs to give up the exchange, and he does, but he does it probably the wrong way. It says the computer says he needs to move knight takes h5. However, he's already almost down a full point. And now I'm going to take that. That's probably his losing move right there, is abandoning his idea. Of course, I had a fork on c7, so you got to be careful of that as well. He needs to take it. Okay, he takes it. And now we just start cleaning up. And what's interesting about this is, in this particular position, I assess this position as, okay, let's count them. 4 pawns, I have 4 pawns, he has 5 pawns. And I have 2 rooks and 2 bishops. That's pretty good. He has 1 rook and 3 minor pieces, no 2 bishops. So piece-wise, what we've got is I add up 2 bishops as being in a position like this, 7. And my 2 rooks are 10, so that's 17. And he's got 3 pieces, which is 9, plus a rook, so that's 14. And so I'm well ahead. And his king is poorly placed. My king's in the middle. I could castle eventually, and that kind of lines me up with his king, but the way his pawn structure is and everything else, just simply exchanging should win easily, and that's what the computer recommends. However, I decided to continue in the middle game here, and I went backwards, I think. I made that move. And as you'll see in just a few moves, with very careful play, we're well back up. The computer's recommending I castle now. But we're going to be back up too. And so, before anything further takes place here and all kinds of ridiculous things happen, I mean, I can make a lot of suggestions on what he's going to do. We'll just truncate this game. It was an easy win, so we have lots of possibilities here in this position. And we'll just say lesson learned in this particular case.